25 minutes before 7 here on the program, the South African Council of Educators has released a report that showed that at least 20 teachers have been teaching using fraudulently acquired qualifications. SACE has meanwhile pledged that teachers with fraudulent qualifications will be uprooted out of the education system. The organisation strives to ensure that the education system is enriched by providing properly registered and professionally developed educators. Well, that's just one of the aspects to come out of this report. There's a lot more, and to shed some light on it, we're joined in our studios, and I think it's our Durban studios, if I'm not mistaken, by SACE CEO, I beg your pardon, it's our Pretoria studios, by the SACE CEO Raj Brijraj. Thank you very much for being with us here on Morning Live.
Thank you, Leanne. Good morning to you and to the listeners.
All right, thank you. Give us the background of this particular report. I've just highlighted the teachers that are teaching fraudulently, but there are so many other aspects of this report as well. What areas were looked at?
Leanne, the South African Council for Educators has a threefold mandate. It has to see to the registration of all educators, which is compulsory. Secondly, it has to watch over the professional development of educators. And thirdly, it has to make sure that educators abide by the SACE Code of Ethics. So the report that we presented a day or two ago covers all aspects of our operations.
So it covers all aspects in terms of?
Our mandates, which are registration, professional conduct, and ethical behavior.
Okay, so let's talk about one of the findings. And one of these findings, of course, which I said in the introduction, showing that about 20 teachers have been teaching with fraudulent qualifications. How does something like this actually happen?
We have discovered that in certain parts of the country, there were educators that were teaching with fraudulent qualifications, and these were brought to our attention by the authorities. It is a joint responsibility of the authorities, the employers, and SACE to make sure that teachers have authentic qualifications. Now, the council does a verification and vetting process when it receives applications for educators to teach. But now it seems that we have to go to a higher level of verification because our procedures are not picking up these fraudulent qualifications. So we are now in contact with authorities like the South African Qualifications Authority, the Departments of Education, and also the universities. Yeah. So very soon we will have almost an automated system of checking all of the teachers' qualifications. We will make sure that within a year or two, all teachers who are teaching in schools will have the qualifications verified. And of course, when we find that there are educators who have been teaching with fraudulent qualifications, there's going to be trouble. Yeah. Those teachers will be deregistered, but they'll also be reported to the South African Police Services.
Why suddenly now? I mean, there's a report that one of the teachers has been teaching for 20 years with this fake qualification. I mean, this scenario it could be a lot bigger than what we imagine it is.
I pray it is not. I pray it is not. What happens is there are different categories of educators who may have fraudulent qualifications. One category is that when SACE was launched in the early 90s, the law required us to register all educators who were teaching at that time. So in this particular case, it is most probable that the educator was teaching at the time before SACE came into operations. So we were given a mandate to make sure that we register without discrimination all educators. Yeah. But of course, that's not the only category. There are others, I must admit, that have slipped into the system with fraudulent qualifications. And that is why we are now making a pledge to step up our vetting and verification procedures and to work very closely with the authorities and the employers, because this is a joint responsibility of SACE and the employers to make sure that our educators are professionally qualified.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, there's allegations, or it's said, that a lot of these fake qualifications are coming from the universities that are mentioned are the University of Zululand, UNISA, and the University of the Northwest. Whose obligation is it to verify these qualifications?
Yes, fortunately, we've had good cooperation with the universities. They have been giving us details of educators that have genuinely qualified from the universities. And when we match their database with ours, we pick up the ones that are having fraudulent qualifications. So we want to make sure that soon we will be working with all universities to make sure that we go back and check all qualifications. So it doesn't mean that it is just these universities that are involved. And I must say, it is not the university that is involved, but there are a few officials who are most probably corrupt in these universities.
Yeah. Well, it's ensuring that this does not happen. But now, this is just the qualification side that we've been talking about. One side that really worries me, and I imagine it worries a lot of parents as well, is the report where there's a very bleak picture being painted of the incidence of sexual offences committed by educators in school around the countries. There's been a sharp increase in this.
Yes, Leanne, this is a sore part of the profession. But before I comment on the educators that are abusing our learners physically and even sexually, we must acknowledge that the large majority of our teachers, over 99% of our teachers, are very good teachers. They have not run into any problems that have brought the profession to discredit. So we must not, in a way, tarnish the whole profession with the wrongdoings of these few rotten apples. And they are rotten apples, and we want to get rid of them. There has been a little spike in the numbers that we are dealing with over the past period, and that could be because of more transparency now. We are advocating for parents and learners and communities to come forward and tell us where they feel that educators have acted unethically. And even now we are trying to protect confidentiality because there are lots of threats that go on so that people do not report. We're also appealing to our parents not to be taken away by bribes or by favors by some of these teachers and not come by to give us evidence. So that would contribute to us eradicating this problem.
Yeah, indeed. So it's that alarming figure. I understand what you're saying, that there are good teachers out there. We do know that. But it is the issue that these events are happening in schools around the country. We talk about sexual offences against our children and against learners. And the other issue is one that came out that was quite startling, is educators actually stabbing each other. And that's another problem, fighting amongst each other where there are cases that are pending where they have been assaulting one another. What's that all about?
Yes, Leanne, we do have a problem in that we are not getting away from being a violent society. We find in our schools, teachers are still using violence against learners to discipline them. We find in our schools, learners are using violence against our teachers. We find in our schools, teachers are being violent for each other. And we want to make sure that violence does not continue to become a way of our life. So we appeal to the members of the public to inform SACE when there is violence in school, even if it doesn't involve learners, so that SACE can take proactive measures to begin curbing this trend. For far too long we have been a violent society, and I think peace must start from schools.
Yeah. We're going to have to leave it there, but I think anybody who's interested in reading this report goes to your website. We've had it on the screen the entire interview, so please do go. It's sace.org.za and the number 012 at 663 9517. All right, that you can get hold of them if you've got anything to report. Raj Brijraj, the CEO of SACE, thank you very much for joining us here on the program. Good. Thank you very, very much.